Hello and welcome to Hangout on Connections Forum. Today we are in episode 78. Imagine 78. And our title today is Living the Shift, an insight into consciousness unfolding. And our special guest is Angela Coulter. Coulter, I guess, no?
Yes,
I said it right, I hope so. Welcome, Angela.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm glad to join you guys.
Wonderful to have you here. Before we introduce you a little bit and talk with you, we want to say some words about Connections Forum. Connections Forum, we have renamed it in Hangout on Connections Forum, is for expression, relationship, and healing. Because we are offering talks and interviews and also mini-series on relevant topics within the basic human interactions. The nature of human communication is to convey what we want to express, but may be blocked by obstacles across gender and also cultural barriers. That's why we have decided to focus our weekly show on relationships, expression, and in-depth discussions on how to deal with or heal these issues which arise for most people sooner or later. Actually, they do. Lives are like this. And before I give over to my co-host Margarita, I want to introduce myself. I'm Heidi Hörnlein, or Adelheid Hörnlein. I'm a Hangout host more than ever here in Connections Forum, or Hangout on Connections with Margarita, and also the Wisdom Factory, which is on the star here behind, with my husband Mark Davenport. Then we have here, I'm in Italy, by the way, and it's very hot. You might see that and hear all the cicadas outside. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, we have here a retreat and a guest house. We are about an hour north of Rome, and we welcome you to come here for holidays or have your courses here. And me personally, I am a voice coach, voice teacher. I was for 20 years, and I'm a transformational coach, relationship counselor, and many, many other things, and a lover of animals and of life and of integral theory. And I think that's now enough for me. I give over to you, Margarita.
Yes, I'm a Margarita Christolotis. I'm an intuitive mentor, healer, author, creative artist, and consciousness explorer. And I was born in Sweden, which is my home country, and I now live in Kingston, Canada. And what I do here is helping stressed and overwhelmed women to overcome the emotional turmoil and recover their emotional and authentic self. And I absolutely love when people are actually seeing the gift of healing in their life. And I work with some of my private clients on a retreat I have created here called Enchantment Healing Retreat. And my website is thechristolotus.com. So now over to our very special guest. Her name is Angela Coulter, and she is an intuitive assisting with spiritual alchemy, providing ascension mentorship and healing, facilitation, and instruction. Her focus is helping others to clear their own path ahead and teaching how to fully tap into their own divinity. So, what is that, to tap into your own divinity? Can you tell us about that, Angela?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my understanding, and I always talk about things from my understanding, because I always say, well, you know, always check it against your own truth and your own guidance and whatever. But my understanding is we're all part of the divine. We're all part of the oneness and the singular consciousness of the universe. And part of this whole expression of this reality of duality has been disempowerment, taking things outside of us, you know, creating existences in terms of that we could possibly be in lack of anything and forgetting that we have the divine inside of us. And so now, you know, the way I understand it is as we are going through this metaphysical and spiritual shift in sort of an exponential manner these days, that it's really, really crucial for us to get to a point of remembering that we have all the answers inside of us, that at the end of the day, once we get down to it, we can simply depend on what's inside and the guidance inside once we clear all the paths to allow that, so that we get back to a place of unconditional love and connectedness to help us really sort of leapfrog our journeys.
So I'm very curious what your take is about the shift. What is it?
Well, that's a really loaded question. I think if you ask 10 people or 100 people what that is, you're going to get 100 different answers, you know. Well, it's simply a time of, you know, I can go as out there or as practical as you want, you know. But it's a time where, you know, physically, even in the astronomy world, you know, there's evidence to show that our solar system is going through what they call the photon belt in our galaxy, and the nature of the photon belt and its physical density is that it actually lightens the density of everything within it, and we haven't been in this belt for eons, and we naturally actually physically change by being in that. But it's all coinciding, because the way I look at it is we created this whole illusion from the divine standpoint, and for all the lessons that we wanted, and so we've created all of these physical I can't think of the word of it, the still point or the center point of, well, we are going to shift into a place of remembrance and remembering the connectedness, because we've gone to this extreme of separation and duality, and that's been part of the lessons, which has been perfect. But we also, you know, and now it's time for us to come back together, still like honoring our individuality, but also coming back to the remembrance of connectedness and unconditional love and higher vibration, and living in a higher vibration, which naturally causes us to live in a space of love. And it is because we have set it up so that we have all of these coinciding physical manifestations. So whether it's the physical coming into the photon belt, whether it's, you know, what people call the end of the Mayan calendar, whatever that was in 2012, and all of these things, you know, you see these astrological configurations and all of these different, what we call metaphysical and different spiritual practices and understandings and manifestations and tools that we have are all pointing to, oh, well, we've set this up to be a huge time of shifting. So it's sort of like, okay, you know, we're done with these lessons. We're done with these really extreme separation lessons, and now it's time to come back together. And what I was given when I sort of had what I call my grand awakening back in 2009 was, well, we're sort of ripping off the Band-Aid, because it's like, oh, we don't need to go through all the undoing in a really long period of time, so we're going to rip off the Band-Aid. And to do that, it's sort of like an exponential curve where you know, we're just going to change, and a lot of stuff is going to fall away really quickly.
So when somebody experiences the shift, what do they experience? What comes up for them? Can you give an example of what happens in their life?
Oh, well, it's very individual for the person. I mean, I have so many people who come to me and they're like, okay, so all of a sudden I am hearing things, or I see things, or I understand stuff that I never understood before, and things make sense in a way that I never even knew would make sense. Or it's just funny, because it's like things that don't serve us are needing to just fall away quickly so that we can sort of come back to that pureness of who we are. And people, it's awesome, because you have some people who've been on what I call the active spiritual path for years, and they come to like the next jump in awareness. And then you have some who have had no interest in any kind of active spiritual path, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a second, all of a sudden this stuff is all coming into my purview, or they start seeing ghosts, they start, you know, getting messages, and they're like, I don't know what to do with this, and their lives change dramatically. So, and that's, you know, but the funny part is it's really challenging to point out one thing, because if you look at the world where we are today in 2015, and you go 5 years back, the world is completely different, and we have really accelerated in our change, and we see a lot of institutions falling apart. We see a lot of information sort of coming to light, and, you know, some people call them conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but there is information about stuff that has been in structure and manifestation for a while that we've just sort of ignored because it's been part of the lesson, and now it's sort of falling away, and there's this consciousness and this awareness, and wait a minute, we need to start looking at the whole picture and the macrocosm as well as the microcosm, and that's all part of it.
Well, that was a very detailed answer. So I'm thinking for people who have no clue what metaphysical is and is not on the spiritual awakening bandwagon, let's say, what would you say it is for them?
It is changing the way we live into a much more positive way of doing it. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets, because we have gotten to this point of such negativity that we realize it doesn't work. And there's sickness abounding. There's a whole bunch of events around the world that really just manifest as messages to us about how separate and separated we have developed to in terms of our awareness. And so for somebody who has no idea about any of that, it's just that most of the time they'll just start noticing, wow, like what is all this junk all over the place, and why all this sickness, and why all this death, and why all of this, and part of it, and I don't know about you, but most people I know who are not even, like I have friends that are like the friends I've had since before I was really actively doing this, and there were some that I thought I would sort of lose touch with because they just were not even interested in any of that, which was fine. But they surprised me too, because I'd have them being like, oh, this happened, and they knew it was me to come to. They'd be like, could you tell me about this? Because there's something. So it's almost like I don't even think there is anybody who has no awareness anymore. Even those who deny it, they just sort of see it. And they try to deny it, and then it sort of keeps on coming back and hitting them in the head until they say, okay, there's something more to this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I would like to know, what do you think this negativity comes from? Where is the reason or the source? And what would you think can change it?
Well, the negativity, so the way I see things is in terms of separation or connection, right? So energies of separation duality are things that are resistance-based. So fear, anxieties, regrets, resentments, anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, shame, regret. There's something else. I think I said regret. But anything that's based in that, so the way I see it is through individual and separation-based behavior, it has become really, really, really loud because we've gotten into such depths of those lessons. And so it's almost like we got ourselves in so deep now. It's like that's why we have to tear the Band-Aid off to get ourselves out. But, if we can go into a whole lesson in quantum physics on, what high vibration is and what low vibration is. And I talk about that a lot. And I had a meetup that I used to do that was just like an open spiritual discussion forum. And I remember one woman came in and she goes, well, you're talking about this high vibration thing and raising your vibration. She goes, I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, well, in physics, it's just, the vibration. And so I said, okay, here's the thing. When do you feel really good? And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, when do you feel really good? And I said, when you laugh, do you feel really good? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. When we look at it, when we look at it in the physical, and they talk about laughter is the best medicine, and how many studies they've done in positive psychology and people, and you're just talking about the sciences that we've had, is how things change and how people can mend themselves through a much more positive outlook, right? And so but we've gotten so steeped in the drama and the addiction to drama. That's what I sort of feel like. It's like we're addicted to the drama. And we're so lost in the addiction to the drama that we're like, well, I don't know how to get out of this. And there are beliefs out there that many have that have to do with things like, well, and this is from a really higher perspective standpoint of, well, it might not be as exciting if we don't have as much drama. Because, and there's no judgment on this, but this is a pretty common thing. And I talk about, well, how many people do you walk up to in corporate and any place And the first thing they start talking to is, oh my God, the worst thing they saw on the news, right? Oh, did you see the thing about the shark bites? Did you see a thing about the shooting? Did you see a thing, or my back is killing me? And the energy is focusing on the negative and separation-based energies, which then perpetuates it and creates it more. Yeah. And so I think we've just gotten in this cycle that's really exponentially grown to this huge explosion point of, okay, this doesn't serve us, so we need to just let this fall away, or it'll fall away with us or for us. And I always look at it from the standpoint of, do we want to choose the traumatic or dramatic events, or would you rather choose it with grace and ease and fun? And that's sort of what I focus on with people is the magic. If you want to talk about metaphysical stuff, the magic is and the alchemy, the spiritual alchemy, is changing from one state to another of this lower vibration, disempowered, separation-based energy to this connected, high vibration, love-based, laughter-filled, joy-filled kind of existence, because we all deserve that.
I know that you came from a corporate background. Mm-hmm. How did that affect you from the point of view of coming from a corporate company and to your own self, own your own business and starting this sort of spiritual, what do you call it, crusade, right?
Yes. Well, I had no idea I was going to end up here. Let's just say that. But I was in corporate, because I grew up with certain beliefs of, what we called back in the 70s and 80s, breaking the glass ceiling and all this kind of stuff. And I really worked hard. I was very inspired and driven and got to the position and paycheck that I always wanted. And I was miserable. And what was interesting was I had all of these latent abilities that were already apparent, but I had never understood what they were. I had a lot of physical manifestations that were telling me get out, like migraines all the time, and just a lot of physical things and sickness and whatever. And so I started seeing a naturopath and a craniosacral therapist, and that was when I started going organic and changing my whole lifestyle. And then when I felt better, I realized that I was getting dragged down by going to work. Because when you're in a good place and then you go into a place that's contrasting to that, it was sort of like a drag. Like I'd walk in and there'd be like 1,000-pound weight on me. And, I didn't even consciously at the time understand it, but I basically was like, my husband finally said to me, because I was like, well, because, we get stuck in, I don't want to lose this, we don't want to lose this income. We had 2 small kids and everything else. And he's like, you know what? You are miserable. He said, if you want to go and do something else. And I actually left corporate and started an herb nursery, an organic herb nursery. And I did that for several years. And it was something completely different than I had ever done. I had no agricultural background. And then, we had a tank in the economy here in 2008. And then I went back to doing a small marketing business. So I had all this stuff. And I was like, I guess I called it my early midlife crisis, because I was like, well, who am I? Right? And it was during that time I had what I call my grand awakening, and I woke up one morning and I basically had all of this information just bombarding me, and I could hear things and see things and understand things, and it was like, oh my gosh, like it floored me, and I was scared of it in the beginning, and I continued on. But then, like, once I had luckily a friend, placed in my reality that I didn't realize would he be able to help me through this, and talked to her, and she was like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, you're just having a spiritual awakening. That's fine. So I went through all this, and like within 6 months I was getting the message, you came here to do this, and you came here to help people do this. You came here to help people step into their own power and know what the bigger picture is. And at the beginning I was sort of like, seriously, because it was to me always like a shiny thing, a dog and pony show. I come from New York, and there's a reason there's like the New York Psychic and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, well, is that something I could really do seriously? I don't know. Is it is a thing? And finally, basically my higher self and the universe set things up and blocked me off until I finally said, there's nothing else I can do. So I sort of forced my hand from my higher consciousness to say, no, this is what you came here to do. And once I actually hung the shingle and stepped out and started doing it, I never looked back, because I've never been happier.
That's an awesome story, and a cool role model for other people to actually also heed the inner urges, the inner mission that we are all here to do. I myself have had that kind of awakening also, so I know what you're talking about.
And I think a lot of us set ourselves up like that, like, okay, here's our timeline, and if we don't listen to by then it's going to be like the etheric 12 by 12 upside the head, and you know, the sort of the pat on the back, like, come on, let's go.
Yeah. Boom over there, yeah.
Yeah, no more time, just get with it. That's basically the message I got, is no more screwing around, let's get on it.
Yeah, I so agree, because there is, like, if you resist it, right, like I am a rebel, so I resist all kind of changes very much, and then of course I get more struggle, and I get more lessons that I have to do this now, and then I have to do this. Yeah, so I know what they're talking about. But for people who actually hasn't understood this or are resisting, what can you tell them what they could do to make it easier?
Well, anybody who knows me will say I always come down to the core thing of, well, meditate. I always tell, because, you know, the chatter in our minds, we have come to such a frenetic pace in this world, you know, whether it's the internet or email or our cell phones, or, you know, we're constantly connecting, but we're not really connecting in so many, you know, respects, and everybody's got that voice of the higher self that gives us clear guidance, and we know what's highest and best for us, but the ego or the chatter is so used to managing this part of consciousness that it's so loud, and people are just like, well, I don't know which way to go, I don't know what to listen to. But how many times, and I always say this to people, is how many times have you heard that voice, which is clear and concise and says, yeah, we should do this, or I should do this, and then the ego overrides it and says, no, we should do this based on this, and blah, 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 and then you do the other thing, and you realize, had I just stayed in that, you know, and listened to that clear voice, I might have fared much better, and it might have been a lot more graceful and easy, you know. So what I come down to, and the first thing I always work with when somebody comes in to see me for sessions and stuff, is, because I work with people who are just starting out to who've been doing this for like 20, 30 years. Like, it's a big range, and who I tend to attract are people who are ready to really take big leaps in consciousness in a short period of time, no matter where they are. But if they've not done anything, the first thing is typically to reflect inside themselves, to start knowing themselves better, because we have gotten into the habit of ignoring ourselves, right? Which is so reflected in how much sickness there is, how much energy of that separation that is, because we're not looking first and foremost at what's inside of ourselves, because if we can't come from things from a place of love and loving ourselves and accepting ourselves, then it's really challenging for us to do that with anybody else in the world. So what I teach a lot of people is meditation. It doesn't have to be any kind of specific form of meditation. I always tell, you know, I give them some suggestions on, you know, like, I basically get guidance as to how this will work, for what will work for this person, or have them try this. And I tell them, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes a day, it's a time for you to shut down the mind, and no matter how you do it, it's a way for you to shut down the mind and allow the bigger universe to come in. Because when we do that, no matter how, you know, woo-woo some people call it, or you want to get or not, it's actually, they've done so many studies that have shown how much clearer we are mentally, how much more focused, how much more at ease, how calmer we are, how much physically better we are when we take that time for ourselves to quiet the mind and focus on what's within. And that's, I mean, it's about as simple as you can get, and yet a vast majority of the population still denies themselves of that loving me time, you know.
Well, that's is a result of, you know, it's much easier to go back to the addiction, to the drama, and go to the fridge and eat that ice cream, and to try to push it down, and because that's I guess that's called the comfort zone, right?
Right, and denial.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, I wanted to know, in some way you have already answered my question. I wanted to know what sort of meditation you recommend, because there are so many different ways of meditation. And I wonder if just as if it is possible, 5 minutes or something, give us a guided meditation, how you would do it for a beginner.
Absolutely. Actually, I have a great one that's 5 minutes long. That is what I
Okay.
usually start people all the time. So we can just, like I said, I go by guidance, because when I'm in a session, I'll just suggest this for this person, right? And a lot of times what I ask them when we start is, if they have no experience in any of this, I'll ask them, well, where do you find the most peace? Like where and when do you find the most peace? I had a man who came into me, and he really was not into any of the, the more metaphysical stuff or whatever, but there was a very specific purpose he was coming to me. And when I asked him that, he thought for a minute, and he goes, oh, when I'm gardening. And I said, okay, well, that's a meditation in itself, because is it when, like, he's like, yeah, my mind will go for a while, and then all of a sudden it just becomes really focused, and I become really connected to the earth and to the plants I'm working with. And this was a very, macho kind of guy. And he goes, no, he goes, I love that space. He goes, I don't get it enough. And I'm like, so then make it more of a priority. It can be just something like that, as long as you give yourself that space. And he even said, when I do that more often, and they lived on something like 10 acres, so he had plenty of land to be able to do that with. He goes, when I do that more often on the weekends, he goes, I actually do feel a lot clearer and stuff. And it's really funny, because we don't even realize what we can consider meditation. So I suggest, usually what I ask people is, what is it that you do that causes your mind to shut down? Like, and sometimes, it starts out rambling, and then you get to a point of, okay, now this is all there is, right? So some people, it's like swimming. Some people like swimming. Some people like walking or running and exercising, as long as they can be quiet and not, have their mind distracted on stuff. And sometimes it's just sitting in nature, But yeah, let's do a 5-minute meditation. That I do this one all the time with people, and this is a really good one. I have a lot of people say, oh my God, I've never been able to focus before, and it's really easy to, when you do it from like this perspective. So yeah, let's do that now. All right, so everybody just sit comfortably, however you feel most comfortable. You're not going to be distracted by your body. And close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths. Now, as you breathe in, see or feel as if your heart is breathing in. And as you breathe in, expand all that is good and clear. And as you breathe out all that is negative and toxic, to release from your body and transform into light. Now, as you breathe in, feel or see a brilliant light coming from the center of your heart. This is your light of divinity and unconditional love. Breathe in and see or feel this light expand in your chest. And again, breathe out anything negative, anything toxic. Now breathe in and expand that light through your chest and your torso until every cell and in between every cell is saturated in this amazing, brilliant light of unconditional love. Breathe in and expand that light now to fill your arms, your hands, your fingers, your neck and head, until your entire upper body is saturated, every cell and in between every cell, with this amazing divine light. Now breathe in and expand that light down into your legs, your feet, your toes. Until your entire physical body is saturated, every cell and in between every cell, with this amazing divine light of unconditional love. Now breathe in and expand that light out into the energy field around you, emanating from your body like a lighthouse. Shine this beam of beautiful divine light from you out into the area around you. And now turn up that light. Breathe in, expand that light, make it brighter and brighter and brighter. And recognize that you are a beacon of light. Now holding that light and keeping yourself the beacon, come back to the body and feel your fingers and toes. And take a deep breath in that, and then open your eyes when you're ready.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And see, that was what, 6 minutes? That's easy.
Mm.
And you know, I teach a lot of people that because, you know, we're in the express lane all the time, and I'm like, well, you can do this in less than 10 minutes, you know. And what happens is I find that some start it, you know, I say, you know, do it when you wake up in the morning when you're still laying in bed. You know, it's a great way to sort of check in with your body before you get out of bed in the morning. It's a great thing to do before you go to sleep at night. I have clients who do it like at lunchtime at work because it sort of clears out the muck that they've gathered, you know, in their workday sometimes or whatever, and then eventually they expand it. But it can be that simple. You know, there's a lot of other things, and then, you know, you can get into energy healing and you know, and I get into all that advanced stuff and work with a lot of people on that too. But this is where you start, and it can be that simple, and you never really have to be much more than that. You know, there's a client that I have who's incarcerated long term, and I've taught her how to meditate, and I've taught her how to actually do energy healing and intuitive work just from that exercise that we just did. I mean, because you can expand it to the universe, you can connect with other people that way, you can do so many things with it. And she has become really powerful in doing that, which is amazing and awesome. And this is somebody who I can only spend like, you know, 1 to 2 hours with, you know, every week or, you know, once every week or two. And it's been a really powerful, transformative experience for her in just doing that.
Well, the interesting thing that occurred for me when you started, it's like this big light come boom, like here, right up on this side here. And then I went inside, and then it was like just a source of light in there. And then I thought, she says heart, okay, the shot. So I looked into my heart, and then I saw some kind of a little flowing thing, very tiny actually, less than a hazelnut. And then as you started to talk, it was just flowing out and out and out and out, and it came out, and then it included that light over here. I don't know what that light is exactly, but and then I felt my whole aura about it. I was kind of, I haven't experienced it like this when I have tuned in before, so thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Cool. That's very cool.
I have another question. In the description, it's named your website, the trinityenergyprogression.com. I would like to know, what is that? Can you talk? We have still about 8 minutes or something. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So that's another one of my pet projects because I work in several things. In 2011, I was gifted with the remembrance of a practice to help people really step into their divine power, their divine birthright, in a really limitless way that is free of like the ritual and ceremony that many of the things that we've created as tools have done. Now they all do great jobs, but then there's always been like this limit. So it's sort of like, well, now it's time to really explore and remember when we come from unconditional love and connectedness and how powerful that can be in its simplicity. So it is a practice. It's a way of life. It is it's an energy modality. I use it predominantly in my healing work with other clients and stuff. And then eventually my goal is always to teach them how to do it, because it's really an advanced way advanced and simple way of really creating our reality and expanding our consciousness in a really accelerated manner. So it's really awesome, and I love it because I'm so passionate about it. And the name Trinity came from these conversations that I was having with some of my my spiritual guides in the beginning about the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the divine creation within us. So like a lot of times we call it the mother, father, child, or whatever. But it's really that remembrance of, it starts from this place of remembering that we are already complete and that everything is inside of us. And through this whole existence of duality, we have created all these partitions of separation and disempowerment that cause us to believe at this level of consciousness that there are things outside of us. So we are then in need or lack or feel like we're in lack or need of something. And so the practice is really shifting our entire perception of everything, anything being outside of us, to everything is inside of us. And instead of us having to attain anything, like we talk about attaining enlightenment, you know, getting to enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, but instead of attaining, it's remembering that we're already enlightened. And part of that is pulling out all these what I call partitions, that prevent us from remembering that we're already there. So, you know, I said it's sort of like a magical act. You know, when you go to a magician and they have the assistant get in the box, you know, and they put the big swords or the slats in the box, and they pull apart the box into pieces, and they're like, oh, look, you know, she's in 4 different pieces or 6 different pieces or whatever. And then they put it all back together and pull out the slats, and it's like, oh, look, she's always been this whole being, even though it looked like she was split up into 4. And that's how I've seen it and explain it is, so that's what we've done in terms of duality and separation is, as the divine, we've split ourselves up into all of these pieces and parts to explore it to its fullest, because we're infinite beings, which is amazing. And now we've gotten to all these pieces and parts. Now it's time to pull out the slats, put it all back together, and pull out what I call the partitions to say, oh, look, we're already whole and complete. There's nothing to attain. There's nothing to have to work for or look for that's outside of us. It's simply looking within, removing all the stuff that holds that energy of separation and partitioning and disempowerment, to remembering the power inside. So it's very, very accelerated in terms of spiritual growth, because the more we pull out partitions, the more of the divinity that's within us that we remember, and the more powerful we become, and the easier it becomes, and the faster it becomes. And then it's also based in the fact of, you know, with me, I'm like, you know what, we've done the suffering and the separation-based stuff to get to that place of remembrance, and now it's time to play and have fun and have joy and grace and ease. Grace and ease is my mantra. But getting to a place of doing things differently, doing things without limits, and knowing that we are free to explore our limitlessness because of the divinity within, and the more we do so from a place of love and connectedness, the more powerful we become. That's really it. And it's not in a thumb. What do we call it? You know, that's it. And I can't think of the term. In a nutshell, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
But we have, you know, I have, yes, TrinityEnergyProgression.com is the practices website, and we now have, I think, almost 130, maybe somewhere between 130 and 140 practitioners, and I have 20 different instructors now who are teaching it, and all around the United States. We have somebody in Canada, and next year I'm planning on going over to the UK and starting teaching over there, and there are plans to, you know, do it around the world. So it's awesome.
That's amazing. So we're coming to the end of our show. So I would like to ask you, Angela, what is your takeaway from this session?
Well, you know, like I said, it always comes down to quieting all the chatter and listening to what's inside. And what is amazing to me, even in the spiritual practitioner world, you know, the world where we're all professionally doing the work, how many don't take a lot of time focusing on themselves to, you know, to do their self-work. And I know some fantastic practitioners who are phenomenal working with other people, but then when they get to themselves, it's like they put themselves last on the list. So I always say, you know, when we're on an airplane, right, and they talk about the emergency situations, and if the oxygen mask comes down, to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping the person next to you, right? That's the same thing in terms of how we exist in our highest vibration, in the most powerful and pure way, in the way that we can help everybody and the world the most, is to raise our own vibration and focus on coming into the best version of ourselves as possible. And so that really takes doing, which is what the living the shift stuff is all about, which is doing. How do I do this? We can talk it all day, but let's actually do it. And it starts really with a very basic thing of going inside and quieting the mind and recognizing the divine light that we are. And the clearer and brighter that becomes, that's all we have to do is be. And it sounds really simple, but we're really undoing a whole bunch of stuff to get to that simple place, you know.
Okay, thank you. And Heidi, what are your final words here?
My final words are rightly attached to what Angela said at the end, that it's a good reminder that we who want to help other people, that we do it first for ourselves and don't lose it out of, out of sight, because it's often then it's overwhelm and you have to do, and you forget to do it for yourself, what you teach others. So thank you. It's a very good reminder.
And my takeaway is that we are all connected and we come from the same inner source in the heart. I believe that. I have experienced that. My perception is that. And certainly this session with you, Angela, has been further evidence for that. But the expression of that is thousand and million-fold in each person, each individual.
Right.
So thank you for this session today. And Heidi, is there anything else we need to tell you?
No, it's just to invite people for next week, where we will present our fun and relaxation challenge in this regular show, and we will have amazing guests. 7 people. There is Berit, there is Nicola Levac, there is Rein Doyle, there is Elaine Nieberding, there is, who else is there? Christopher Pearsall. Who did I forget just now? Other 2 people. Melanie Hall. I don't have it here in front of me. I'm sorry.
And you and me.
And you and me, yeah. But there's still somebody I've forgotten. Oh, I hope they don't take it. Ooh, okay. Anyway, come and watch us. This will be a big panel. That will be the first time in our show that we have so many people invited. And it will be fun. And we will explore relaxation as we did today. So thank you very much, Angela. It was great.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I was glad to be on your show. And yeah, I saw the thing for this, and I was like, oh my God, fun. It's all about fun. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We are off the air, right?
Not yet.